Kwity. He's going straight back. A spraying target is setting up. Goes deep into the right corner, deep downfield. Tucker Ferguson. Touchdown! The Giants have it. Tucker Ferguson deep in the end zone for a touchdown. And the Giants are out in front now, 41-24.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. And welcome to the Gridiron. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you so much. Everyone's been watching my videos out there. I greatly appreciate it. If you give this video a thumbs up, or maybe leave a comment below, or maybe share the video, it would mean so much to me. But just thank you so much for just taking time out of your day to check out this video. Thank you. It's time running out for Joe Judge to make it to the playoffs. Well, if history has anything to say about it, yes. It's not a dire emergency right now, but it's starting to get there. Every coach in the history of the New York Giants that's taken us to a championship game or a playoff game, okay, has done it by their third season, okay, coaching the Giants. Right? The Giants have had 9 coaches in the league coach the Giants, okay, in the history of the Giants who've taken us to a championship game or a playoff game, right? And they've done it by their third year. All right, so this is only second year, 2 games in, second year, but history has anything to do with it, I gotta start getting a little antsy here, right? The first coach that did it for the Giants, okay, was Steve Owen. All right, he coached for the Giants for 23 years. He has 151 wins with the New York Giants. He has the most victories of all time of the New York Giants head coaches. Yeah, 151. He coached for 23 years, from 1931 to 1953. He took the Giants to a championship game in his third year of coaching. Now, a little caveat here. He started coaching in 1931. 1931 and 1932, there were no championship games. The first year there was a championship game was in 1933, which happened to be his third season. Okay, coaching the Giants, he took us to a championship game. We lost to the Chicago Bears 23-21 in 1933. Right, it was a phenomenal game, one of the greatest championship games of all time. Unfortunately, there's not much film on it or anything, but it was a phenomenal game. Lead changes, both teams had over 300 yards of offense, which was back then was absolutely phenomenal. The Bears scored a touchdown. They had to score a touchdown. They had to drive the length of the field like the last 2 minutes of the game, and they scored a touchdown. It was a phenomenal game. Sadly, the Giants did wind up losing, but Steve Owen in his third season took us to the championship game. Back then, there was just really weren't playoffs. There was just 2 divisions. Okay, the Bears won their division, the Giants won their division, and it was a championship game. Okay, so championship game / playoffs. Okay, so Steve Owen took us in his third season. The next coach for the Giants, New York Giants, to take us to the playoffs was Jimmy Lee Howell. Okay, he took over after Steve Owen left. He coached from 1954 to 1960 in Jimmy Lee Howell's third season. He took us to the championship game. 1956, the Giants beat the Chicago Bears in New York 47-7. Okay, so Jimmy Lee Howell in his third season took us to a championship game. Okay, then we go after he left in 1960. Then we have Alijah Sherman. Okay, he coached from 1961 to 1968. Alijah Sherman from 61, 62, and 63. We went to championship games 3 straight years. Alijah Sherman really wasn't the greatest coach of all time. He inherited a great team, and he just kind of carried the torch. And that team took us to the 3 championship games. We lost every championship game, 37-0, 16-7, and 14-10. But he took us to the championship games, okay? So, but he did it. Alijah Sherman took us to a championship game in his first season, okay? Then the next one to take us, then it was a little bit of a dry spell. We went from 1963 to 1981. There was this 18-year dry spell, okay? The next one was Ray Perkins. He took us to to a playoff game in his third season. He started coaching the New York Giants in 1979. By 1981, we went to the playoffs, right, for the first time since 1963. But the only reason we went to the playoffs in 1981, and I mean the only reason we went to the playoffs in 1981 is because we drafted somebody by the name of Lawrence Taylor, who happened to be the greatest defensive player in the history of professional football, period, bar none. Without him, the Giants would not have been 9-7, and they would not have made the playoffs. All right, but regardless, in Ray Perkins' third season, he took us to the playoffs in 1981. Okay, then of course, after Ray Perkins left, we had Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells took coach from 1983 to 1990. Bill Parcells' second season, 1984, we went to the playoffs. We wound up beating we beat the Rams 16-13, and then unfortunately we went on the road and we lost to the eventual Super Bowl champions, the San Francisco 49ers. We lost to them 21-10. Then the next person to take us to a championship or a playoff game was Dan Reeves. Okay, he was there for 4 years, 93 to 96. He did it in his first season, right? 1993, we went to the playoffs and we beat the Vikings 17-10. Then we went on the road and we got lost to the 49ers again by a score 44-3. Wasn't pretty. Ugly game. But Dan Reeves did it in his first season, right? Then we got, after he left, after 1996, Jim Fossil came over, and he took us from 1997. He coached until 2003. Jim Fossil took us to the playoffs in his first season. Now, we lost, this was a brutal one. 1997, we lost to the Minnesota Vikings 23-22. I don't even want to go into this game, but it was a brutal loss. We lost at home. But he took us to the playoffs in his first season. All right, then we have Tom. The next one to take us to the playoffs was Tom Coughlin. Okay, he did it in his second season. He coached from 2004 until 2015. He took us to the playoffs in 2005. His second season, where this was a brutal game. We lost to the Carolina Panthers 23-0. It was we couldn't do anything offensively. I remember Jeremy Shockey after the game. He said something like to a reporter, it seems like they knew every play we were going to run, or something like that. It was horrible. It was almost unwatchable. We couldn't move the ball at all. It was very bad. Then the last coach to take us to the playoffs was Ben McAdoo. He did it in his first season. All right, 2016. Of course, he only lasted not even 2 full seasons, but 2016 he took us to the playoffs where we lost to the Packers 38-13. All right. So every coach for the New York Giants, all right, who has taken us to the playoffs has done it by their third season. All right. So this is Judge's second season. All right. So, and if we don't go to the playoff, I don't think he's going to get fired. If anybody's going to get fired, it's going to be a Gettleman. But Judge is also going to realize too, okay, that in the history of the New York Giants, okay, there's only been one coach in the history of the New York Giants that has lasted, who has not taken us to the playoffs, who has lasted more than 2.5 years. Let me explain. All right, so we've had 7 coaches in the history, including Joe Judge, okay, in the history of the New York Giants who have not taken us to the playoffs. Okay, there's also a little caveat here too, okay, and all of them except for one, all right, have not lasted longer than 2.5 seasons. All right, 1974, Bill Arnsparger took over. Okay, he coaches from 1974, 1975, and half of 1976. The reason why it's half is because 1976 we started off 0-7, and they're like, get the hell out of here. All right, and then we got rid of him. We brought in John McVay, who coached the second half of 1976, coached 1977 and 1978. He didn't take us to the playoffs. So Bill Arnsparger was 2.5 years. John McVay was 2.5 years. The 1976 season was special because we opened up Giant Stadium. Supposed to be a big new era and all that and everything. We started off 0-7. Well, at the 7th game of the season, we played at home against the defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers, and we lost 27-0. What an embarrassment. We were 0-7. We lost 27-0 in front of our own fans, and they just canned them. So he lasted 2.5 years, Bill Arnsparger. John McVay lasted 2.5 years. All right, so that's 2 of the coaches. All right. Then we go until Ray Handley. All right, he lasted 2 years, 1991, 1992. He didn't take us to any. All right, he was absolutely pathetic. Okay. So there's 3 coaches, right? Then you got Steve Spagnuolo. All right, it's a little caveat here, okay, because he coached the final 4 games of the 2017 season after we canned Ben McAdoo, right? So he was only 1-3, but he on record he's one of our coaches. He didn't take us to the playoffs. Our record was so horrible. He really probably couldn't take us to the playoffs, but he's on there anyway. So he hasn't taken us to a. He didn't take us to a playoffs, but he only lasted 4 games. Then okay, the fifth coach is Pat Shermer. He lasted 2 seasons, all right, 2018, 2019, 2 seasons. He didn't make it to the playoffs. Then we got Joe Judge, all right, so this is his 2nd season, okay? And the way things are going, it doesn't look like we're going to make the playoffs either, right? So those are 6 guys who have taken us to the playoffs, okay, who lasted no longer than 2.5 seasons. There's only one coach in the history of the Giants, all right, who lasted more than 2.5 seasons as a coach, all right, that didn't take us to the playoffs was Alex Webster. He coached for 5 years, coached from 1969 to 1973. I think the reason why he lasted 5 years was because in that time period we actually had 2 winning seasons. From 1964 to 1980 we had 2 winning seasons. 17 seasons we had 2 winning seasons. Alex Webster was the coach for both of them. 1970 we were 9-5, and 1972 we were 8-6. 1970 we were 9-5. We were out of the playoff, missed the playoffs by 1 game. 1972 we were 8-6. We missed the playoffs by 2 games. So I think that's why Alex Webster was able to coach for 5 full seasons. All right, for the Giants without making the playoffs, without getting canned. But when he coached in 1973, it was an absolutely horrible year. We lost Monday Night Football. We lost to the Rams 40-6. We went to Oakland the first time we ever played the Raiders out in Oakland. We lost. I remember watching this game on TV, 1973. We lost 42-0. Oh, it was horrible. Then the last game, because the Giants played they played the first 2 games of the season in 1973 Yankee Stadium. Then they moved and went to the Yale Bowl in Connecticut because Yankee Stadium was going to get remodeled. So the Giants played in the Yale Bowl, okay, in Connecticut. And the last game in 1973, the last game that Alex Webster ever coached, it was in the snow. We lost to the Minnesota Vikings 31-7. We lost some brutal games. I mean, 31-7, 40-6, 42-0. We got demolished in 1973. It was horrible. But Alex Webster is the only coach who did not take the Giants to a playoffs who lasted more than 2.5 seasons. All right, so, but then you start looking at this season, all right, what's going on with this season, all right? If you have anything for New York football, well, I'll tell you, we are absolutely the absolute freaking doormat of the NFL. The Giants and the Jets, all right, they're tied for the losing winning percentage, all right, since the beginning of the 2017 season. So beginning of 2017, both the Giants and the Jets are both 18-48. Okay, a 273 winning percentage. Unbelievable. I mean, but I can top that. Okay, when I was growing up watching the Giants from 1973 to 1977, okay, the Giants were 17-52-1. That was a 240. In those 5 years, that was a 246 winning percentage. That's even worse than the 273 from 2017. 246. That was brutal. We had two seasons where we won just 2 games. Another 1976 we won 3 games. That was brutal. And you think our offense is bad now. In 1976 we scored 170 points in a 14-game schedule. Get your calculator out. That's 12 points a game. You think we scored 17.5 points a game last year. You think that was bad. Well, we scored 12 points a game in 1976. It was brutal. There was a stretch in 1976, 4 games where we scored a grand total of 10 points. We scored 7 points. We got shut out 2 times in a row, and then we scored 3. I think we scored 7 points against the Vikings. We got shut out by the Steelers. We got shut out by the Eagles, and we scored 3 points. But I think we lost 9-3 to the Cowboys. So 4 straight games we scored a grand total of 10 points. So we were bad in 1976. So you think it was bad now? It was even worse back in the 70s. Not trying to brag or nothing, but it was pretty brutal back then, right? But starting 0-2, all right, is not a very good thing to do if you're going to try to make the playoffs, all right? Since they started this, I'm just going over the 16-game schedule kind of scenario here because there's never been a 17-game scenario, all right? But 1978, they started a 16-game schedule, okay? 343 teams. Okay? 343 teams since 1978 have started off 0-2. Only 38 out of its 343 teams made the playoffs. That's 11% chance of making the playoffs. 11% if you start off 0-2. And it gets even worse if you start off 0-3. That's why this game coming up Sunday is so huge. All right? Now, the last 2 seasons, all right, just an indication, there's been 20 teams that started off 0-2. All right? None of them make the playoffs over the last 2 seasons. 20 teams started off 0-2. Not one made the playoffs. Okay. What are the Giants? 0-2. Yeah. Not looking too good. All right. Now, 0-2 is not necessarily like a death wish. Okay. The 1993 Cowboys started off 0-2. All right. The 2001 New England Patriots started off 0-2. And the 2007 New York Giants started off 0-2. Actually, the first game of that season I was at, my son and I, we were at Dallas at the old Cowboys Stadium. It was a good game, but the Giants lost 45-35. Exciting, a lot of scoring, but the Giants lost. Then the next week, to go 0-2, the Giants came home and they lost to the Packers 35-13. We gave up 80 frickin' points in the first 2 games of the season. So we started off 0-2, but the 93 Cowboys, the 2001 Patriots, and the 2007 Giants all started off 0-2, but they wound up winning the Super Bowl. So 0-2 is not necessarily a death wish, okay? But that is where you start getting almost to be where it is kind of a death wish, okay? Since 1980, 176 teams have started off 0-3, all right? Only 6 teams since 1980 started off 0-3, made the playoffs. That's a 3% chance. 3% of making the playoffs. All right, if you start off 0-3. All right. The teams that do it, all right, was the 2018 Texans. They started off 0-3. They finished 11-5. Okay. The 1981 Jets, I remember this season well, started off 0-3, and they finished 10-5-1. They wound up losing in the playoffs. They lost to the Buffalo Bills at Shea Stadium. It was 31-27. Great game. Really, really great game. But the Jets lost in the playoffs. But they started off 0-3 and went up 10-5-1. Made the playoffs. The 1982 Buccaneers started off 0-3. And it was a short strike season, right? But they made the playoffs. They were 5-4, all right? They only played 9 games that year. But they made the playoffs, okay? The 1995 Lions started off 0-3. They finished the season 10-6. And then they first round of the playoffs, the Eagles beat them. The Eagles scored, I think, 56 points on them. Just totally annihilated them. All right, then the 1998 Bills started off 0-3, and they finished 10-6. All right, the only team, all right, and since 1980 to start off at least 0-3 and win a playoff game, okay, was the 1992 Chargers. Actually, they started off 0-4. All right. And they wound up 11-5. Okay, they're the only team to start off 0-3/0-4, make the playoffs, and win a playoff game. They beat the Chiefs 17-0. Then the next round of the playoffs, they played the Dolphins and they lost 31-0. All right, but they're the only team. All right, so if you're gonna go 0-3, you gotta get 3% chance of making the playoffs. Okay, but even if like what the Giants did like last year, you know how we 1-7, 1-7 is almost a death wish. But I mean, if you can go at least 1-6, which doesn't sound good at all right, but at least if you can go 1-6, there is history of one team making the playoffs. Okay, who started off 1-6. All right, very streaky team here. Since 1970 Cincinnati Bengals. All right, won the first game of the season. They're 1-0. Lost the next 6. They were 1-6. Won the next 7. Then they finished the season 8-6. They won their division. It was a weak division. It was the merger year, 1970, where the AFL and the NFL merged together, and it was the AFC Central Division. Had the Oilers, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Bengals in there. Okay, so the Bengals were 8-6. They had the best record. The Browns were in second place, were 7-7, but the Bengals were 8-6. They won a division. They went to the playoffs, First round of playoffs, they lost to the Baltimore Colts 17-0. The Baltimore Colts were very good that year. The Baltimore Colts won the Super Bowl that year. They beat the Cowboys 16-13. But so there is record. All right. So if you do, at least if you can win one of your first couple games and you get to 1-6, you got a slim chance of making the playoffs. But let's hope that the Giants don't get there. It's 0-2, you got 11% chance. That's not very good. If we lose to the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday and we go 0-3, wow, it might be a real long season. Well, as always, people, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there and go Giants. Woo!